Afade Todohamzu. Greetings, everyone. Welcome back for another presentation of Pasifika Transmissions. Our transmission home base is in Long Beach, and we acknowledge the Tongva people as the stewards of this land, ancestors past and present. We invite you to use the chat to tell us where you're dialing in from and to acknowledge the stewards of the land you now live on, past and present. And who do you bring with you today? Who's your Nana and your Tata? We love hearing from everybody that dials in. Where are you coming from? Drop some images in the chat. We love our community and hope to build relationships with one another for every person that keeps coming back month after month to join us. As is our mission, Pasifika Transmission is our way of enhancing cultural competency and showcasing the vibrant talents and histories of the Indigenous artists in our community. Each artist is invited to the Pacific Island Ethnic Art Museum to be paired with ancestors or pieces from the museum's archive. This is an incredible gift to us Pacific Islanders living away from home because PIAM is the only museum in the contiguous United States with a mission to amplify the collective wisdom of the people of the Pacific Islands of Oceania. It is also a collection by our community. So many of the sacred objects come from families that have been donated and stored at PIAM through the years. So go ahead and find PIAM on Instagram at @PIAM_arts. Of course, this couldn't happen without the generous support of the Robert Gumbiner Foundation and the Roomba Foundation of Long Beach. I'd like to introduce the director of PIAM, Auntie Fran. She is the steward for this home, this incredible collection. So we'd like to invite you, Auntie Fran.
Afade, Marikita Todosamzu. Earlier this month, I was listening to SoCal PICT, which is the COVID relief team, talk story, Stop Anti-Asian Violence, a Conversation of Faith. And at that time, I understood that the ancestors wanted Melodie to be paired with the Masi. God remembers, people remember, water remembers, land remembers, the tree remembers, and Masi.
Sujus Maasi, Auntie Fran. And so with that, we would like to introduce, it's my honor to introduce our artist this month who spoke to the Masi and listened to the Masi. Melodie Bergquist-Turori is a Pasifika artist, educator, and student. Born in Aotearoa, or New Zealand, and raised in San Diego, Melodie is Cook Island, Swedish, and German. Her Cook Island family lines come from Aitutaki and Pukapuka. Her experience in arts and communication began in radio and includes documentary filmmaking and photography. She is a cultural practitioner, member of Pacific American Community Cultural Center, or PAC, and teaches radio and podcasting at Saddleback College. Welcome, Melodie.
Aira mai, kia orana, kia tātou katoa I te ara. Ko Melodie Turori toku ingoa. No Aitutaki e Pukapuka mai toku metua tane. Ko Uria te oiri o Paparuau. No Los Angeles mai toku metua vaine. Kua anau I a hao ki Nu Tireni e no o hana hao ki San Diego. Te enua tangata payonkoish. Te mataurane, how I te arave, ia koto katoa. Welcome. Greetings to us all today from me and my friends, whom you can probably hear on the other side of the fence. My name is Melodie. My father is from the islands of Aitutaki and Pukapuka. My grandfather's village on Aitutaki is Uria. My mom is from right here in California, up in Los Angeles. I was born in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but I grew up here in San Diego, which is where I live now. And this is the ancestral and present day homeland of the Payom-Kawish people, who are the stewards of this land. I'm very glad to meet you all virtually here in Pasifika Transmissions. Thank you for making the time to visit with us. It is a humble honor and a great blessing to share the story of the Masi with you. The Masi is bark cloth. We're all familiar with that around the Pacific. She is from Fiji and she's quite old. She is one of our ancestors. She's more than 100 years old, and she's been on many travels and is now home at Payam.
And so, Melodie, thank you so much for telling us or giving us a little context to the Masi. I'm wondering if you would like to talk a little bit about your process before getting into the video, or if you would just like us to show the video and then we can talk about it.
I think we should probably we'll start with the video.
Great.
One of the things that came out of my time with the Masi is that she wanted to share her story in her own words. And so after we had spent some time together, she gave me a poem that I was glad to interpret for her, which I have turned into a short film, which tells her story in her own words. So this is the voice of the Masi. Once, I was a tree. Lifted my face to the sun, moana nui o te kiva on the wind in my branches, a home to my family and all the crawling, singing beings. Sought and chosen, they called our names to ask if we would become something new. A gift for the village, a gift for Creator. Far and long have I traveled, hearing laughter and weeping, prayers and sighing, joy overflowing, gratitude and grieving. But I did not hear my family until I heard my name again. And then I saw the sun. Koputangata e te moana on the wind, their voices singing through my fibers. I am glory. Marks on my skin tell the voyage from home to this garden that calls me elder sister. And I remember, once I was a tree. So that was the voice of the Masi. I hope you were able to meditate a little bit on her story and her perspective of where she's been.
It's every time I watch it, I just feel very blessed. No, it's a really wonderful piece, and I wanted to get you to talk a little bit about maybe as you can see, we're moving the Masi or the Masi is inside and then she is outside. And so perhaps kind of cluing us into that process of when you listened and what she said to you and that journey.
One of the very first things that she said to me when we first met was, I want to see the sun. And that was a recurring theme in the conversation. And I don't know if you can tell from the video, but she is quite thin and fragile. A lot of the tapa that I have been familiar with from other parts of the Pacific is very thick. I'm not sure if she is delicate and fragile because that's how Masi is made in Fiji, or if just this is her particular being. But when she said, "I want to see the sun," I thought, oh, we can't do that. That's too much. I don't want to be responsible for taking you outside. But she just kept saying, she was so insistent, "I want to see the sun." So I asked Auntie Fran, and with Auntie Fran's blessing, we were able to prepare a place for her to rest outside in the gardens of Piam. And then Mickey, you helped me. I forget who said this, but we carried her down on a piece of muslin, one at each end, because she's very tall. She's taller than me. She's 88 inches long. Yeah, she's so tall. So it was me at the head and you at the foot, and like a bride being escorted down the stairs and then outside to the garden. And it was such a beautiful, special moment to share with everyone who was present. I remember that you, Mickey, sang her a song, and I didn't have a song to sing, but we carried her down and we laid her on the table and secured her so she wouldn't blow away. And I remember we all stepped back and I could feel her joy about being outside again and being able to remember who she was in such a wonderful and important way. She knew who she was and she remembered where she came from, but there's something about being in a particular place that reinvigorates our memory in a fresh way. And I think that's what she experienced in the garden, was this reinvigoration of remembering who she was and where she came from and what her place in the world has been and what it will continue to be.
Absolutely agree. And there was like just this incredible energy. Just a little context for you guys at home. That week, I think it had been raining. And so I think we were also, I think we were planning to not go outside. But there happened to be this like incredible window that just opened up, and it was beautiful sun, just like what you see in Melodie's backyard right now. And a little bit of wind, but we were, being very gentle and like found like, ways to secure her to the table without damaging her. And so just to kind of give you also the sense of like what was really moving in the air, and you were like, okay, I guess she knew exactly what she wanted. And so it also kind of, I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe the practices that that we at PIAM are kind of we're inhabiting and practicing, which is like deep listening to our ancestors, and how that might look. The form of what I think in traditional museums, they talk about conservation, and that I think looks very different from the things that we are really inhabiting, because we're thinking of our indigenous and Pacific Island worldviews, where there's life in there's mana, there's life. These things are charged. The elements are still very alive within these pieces that might have had a more active life, but have joined PIAM in its care. And so yes, they are stored respectfully, but they still have some energy and a purpose. And so I just wanted you to also kind of talk about that a little.
So this process for me was new. I can't say that I have spent much time. This is the most amount of time that I have spent in conversation with an ancestor. I will say that. And from the very first, like the first thing I knew about the Masi upon being introduced to her was that she was my elder sister and her story was my story. And so I tried to let that be the foundation of our relationship throughout. And so to me, that spoke to listening to her respectfully and affording her the dignity and honor of hearing not just her words, but also her presence. So like a full body experience of listening. And it created this really special bond between us. She spoke at length and quite beautifully. She has a beautiful voice and she is very alive and so unapologetically herself in ways that I'm not. You could see from the video, she has quite a few rips and tears and worn places that speak to her journey and the many places that she's been, and also the wisdom that she has from all of her years. But also, she would say to me, look at me, see the whole of me, not just these little places that need to be, or that don't need, but these little places that are worn. Something that Auntie Fran said during our introduction was, you know, a Western focused museum would have wanted to restore the Masi and to paint her and cover over and repair the tears so that she looked new, like she had just been made. But that's not who she is. That's not how she wants to be represented. She wants the whole of her story and the whole of her person to be seen for who she is. And that is such a powerful message to me, to acknowledge the places we've been in, our worn places and the broken places, but to not live from that, to live from the wholeness of who we are as people and the wholeness that we have in our relationships with each other and with the land.
And I do think that you know, just being in the space with you, you know, outside, like kind of getting to see you at a distance, at a safe COVID distance, you know, your process. Um, I, you know, we both have photography in our practice, and so you know, you had mentioned that you wanted to document or use, you know, photography, and so I was showing you the kind of diffusers, like knowing that you were going to go outside in this, like, you know, harsh sunlight. I, you know, was like, oh well, we have these diffusers so that it kind of uh, is not just raining down on her so harshly. But you know, you said actually, I don't think I need those. And, you know, at first I thought that that was a very odd decision, but then I think it really started to make sense as, you know, I was hearing her message through you, um, which was that, like you said, boldly, this is me, these are my creases, these are my, and with the sunlight coming from above, you can really see all the travel, all the care, all the time in her being. And
She wears her wisdom well, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about the diffusion, and actually even today when I was setting up, I was like, oh, maybe I should bring out a tent and so the sun isn't so harsh and the shadows aren't so deep and people will be able to see me better. And I thought, no, we let the Masi be as she was, unfiltered in the garden. That's what she wanted, was truth and honesty. She wanted to be seen in a truthful way, and the shadows and the creases, that's the truth. So that's how we photographed her. That's partly why, that is actually entirely why I'm outside here today to do the transmission. It was such, being outside and being able to breathe the air again was so important for her healing journey that it felt like the right decision to honor that still. And to bring, even though these photographs are not the Masi in person, right? There's still a representation of her and a way to honor her memory of being outside and being a tree and being selected for a special purpose, which was to become Masi.
And so this might be a good time to, I know that you have a slideshow and some photographs. Um, would you like to introduce this activity for us?
So we're going to play you a slideshow with some of the photos that we have taken or that I took during the course of the visits with the Masi. And the photos start inside, which is where we first met, and then we transition outside to get to a sense of her experience and to see the fullness of who she is. I would encourage you to take this moment to kind of quiet your heart and your mind and to practice that listening, to hear the environment around you, however loud or noisy that might be. If you have the technology to tune into Pasifika transmissions today, then you inherently lead a noisy life. We all do. That's part of it's just part of the game of technology. So let this be a moment of healing if you need that, and maybe try to breathe through each slide. There is another poem at the end, which I will read for you, and then we can talk about the context of that. So I hope you enjoy and find this restful. Meitaki pours from our fingers like rain, a torrent of words and images soaking the earth until it saturates, spilling into rivulets and streams and oceans. Life rises where water flows, breathing out memory and breathing in Meitaki, awakening memories alive in us, forgotten, not lost. We rise with the tide, the legacy of ancestors, our past, our present, and our future. Meitaki Matau. We are well. So this poem is my voice. The first one that you heard at the beginning of the transmission was the Masi's, and this is my response to the whole experience of being able to sit in conversation with the Masi. Around Moana Oceania, we have this tradition of part of you goes into the work of your hands. So if you're making a or a katu and you're not in the right spirit, then you're supposed to set that work aside and come back to it when you are in the right spirit, because part of you is going into that piece. And for me, this project was a deep understanding and experience of the meaning of that tradition. All of this work, I think in the past, I have created from want or need. I need to document this. I want to process this thing that I'm thinking about, so I'm going to make this piece. But I had such a profound sense of gratitude and joy and thankfulness for being able to speak to my elder sister and to hear her story and to be her voice for today. And out of that gratitude came the work, the photos, the video, the poetry. And what I meditated on in the writing of this particular poem was the Cook Islands word metaki, which serves many uses, but it's the word that we use if someone asks how we are and we want to say, I'm well, you say metakiao. It's also the word that you use for gratitude. You'd say metaki or metaki mata, I am very grateful. And so there's this relationship, this reciprocal relationship between gratitude and wellness. We are well because we are grateful. And we are grateful and thankful because we are well. And to live from that wellness and understanding of who we are, that is the message of the Masi for us, to live from wholeness and to honor the wholeness in the land and in our relationships with each other, to live and speak from that wellness.
Business Masi Melody. This has been another, incredibly healing, thought-provoking, and just deep Pasifika transmissions, as they always are. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you for your for the message that you shared of the Masi. And I think in closing, we just like to extend to you, our Facebook audience, to greet one another in the chat. What is your ancestral greeting of wellness? And we also just want to wish everyone continued healing and support through these turbulent times, especially our Asian and Asian American kin. A lot of us, our ancestries are very wrapped up in those ancestries as well. But we are feeling with that community, and we wish everybody deep health and spirit in these times. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We will see you next month. There will be only there are two remaining Pasifika transmissions. If I have that right, April, May. But tune in next month for Samantha Tagaloa, and we'll see you then.